Hello everybody, welcome back to Kanga TV, home of North Melbourne fans, and welcome to the Round 11 review. North Melbourne going down to Collingwood last night by 45 points at Marvel Stadium. Just a quick one before we jump into today's video. The Kanga TV caps are open for pre-sale. They close tomorrow night, so please, if you wanted to grab your hands on a cap, there's 4 different styles. I've left the link in the description down below. The love and support you guys give me for the channel is just so overwhelming, and I'm so grateful every single day. If you did want to purchase a cap, all of the links will be in the bio. Like I said, pre-order for this round closes tomorrow night, so please don't miss out. I get messages all the time asking where they can get a cap and when they're available, so they are available for a short while longer. So like I said, if you did want to grab one, link is in the bio. Okay, let's go. Let's talk about last night's game. What a strange game of football last night was at Marvel Stadium. I don't know if strange is the right word, frustrating perhaps. But for 3/4 of the game, North really took it up to Collingwood, and it was a really tight, tough, bit of an arm wrestle of a contest. But we walked out the end of the game 45-point losers. Collingwood 15-18, 108, North Melbourne 9-9, 63. There's so much to break down from this game, I think, from a Collingwood versus North perspective and a holistic sort of perspective. But I just kind of wanted to address where we're sitting now. We are 11 games into season 2025, and we have the bye next week. So the first half of our season is officially done and dusted. And while we are sitting in a better position than we were this time last year, where 2 wins, a draw, we're still 17th on the ladder. And this is the 6th consecutive season that we will enter the bye when we are in the bottom 2. And it looks like another bottom 3 to 4 finish for North, unfortunately, this season, with our first pick, obviously, first round pick in the draft, going to Richmond. You feel like we've improved, and you feel like there's been change. There is evidence of that in game. There's obviously evidence of that in, not in the ladder position, but win-loss record at this point of the season. The percentage as well is a lot better. But this game kind of, I don't know if I feel like it's all of our hard work over the past month undone, but so many things that we could hang our hat on over the past month is kind of gone. After last night's game, Collingwood scored over 100 points. It's the first time since Good Friday that we've let our opposition score over 100 points. And we just got blown away so quickly and so easily by the Pies in the last quarter. It's insane to think that we were 3 points. There was 3 points in this game at 3/4 time. To run out, 7 goal losers by the end of the game. I'm still sitting here wondering if that scoreline does any justice for us, because we put in a really brave fight for 3/4, but Collingwood's wheels probably started to turn after halftime. They were just really inaccurate in front of goal in that third quarter. So by the time they got all of their ducks in a row and aligned by 3/4 time, they just sort of went bang, 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 bang in the fourth, and we didn't really have any answers for them. They just about doubled their score in that final quarter, and once again, we are left here without the win and not really much to show for effort, which is really disappointing. Nick Dacos in that last quarter led so strongly from the middle. It was quite unbelievable. And however, we had been able to somewhat manage him and limit his damage and limit his impact. He was getting a lot of the ball. He was definitely Collingwood's best on ground. Jamie Elliott was also fantastic up forward. But it kind of felt like the same script as last season, although last year it was Will Phillips who went off at 3/4 time and Dacos just ran amok in the last quarter. It was a combination of efforts that just sort of fell away, and he was really able to step into his own and lead from the front, not just in the final quarter, but he really took it up a notch in the last quarter after a very, very solid and a very inspiring three quarters, I think. The game, I think, thinking on it and first sort of knee-jerk reaction is quite similar for me to the Sydney game and the Bulldogs game, in the fact that Collingwood managed Steele Sidebottom. They didn't play Darcy Moore. He sat out for another week. Scott Pendlebury are laid out, Bobby Hill are laid out, and then Braden Maynard subbed out of the game before quarter time. Yet we still couldn't find a way to work through all of those bits and pieces to still put a four-quarter performance together. The Bulldogs in round one, they had a host of star players sidelined, still couldn't get it done. And the Swans, also hampered with injury, were able to find a way to beat us and beat us convincingly. And it kind of felt like we were so close yet so far away, even at times when the game was close. Like, my mind saw the scoreboard and knew that the game was close and was in the balance for the first three quarters of the game. And there was general play there, particularly in the first half, where we really looked like we were taking control and we really looked like we were playing the game on our terms. But then when Collingwood would go forward, they looked a lot more threatening than us. It looked like they had a lot more options forward of the ball than we did. And for our forward line to lack firepower and we looked quite one-dimensional when we were entering the forward 50, and that is the first time, I think, this year where I can really say that the forward line didn't really seem to flow and work the way we probably needed it to. For whatever reason, I don't know, they just kind of lacked urgency and they kind of lacked to rise to the occasion. Nick Larkey was missing once again. Paul Curtis looked so dangerous in that first quarter, but couldn't really find a way to involve himself as the game went on, and potentially that is just a product of him being sidelined for 3 weeks. Cam Zurhaar, I thought, looked quite good, but just didn't see enough of the ball. Jack Darling didn't really have much of an impact on the game at all. And then our most threatening forward, and the one person who you thought they're probably going to break the game open if they can get their hands on this footy, in Finbar Maley, was subbed out at three-quarter time in what, to me, was the most baffling decision we made all night. It's not a knock on Zach Fisher, because it's not really Zach Fisher's fault. Zach Fisher, it was his second or third game for the year. He's come in to play forward in a role that he hasn't played at North Melbourne ever in his time at Arden Street. And he's replaced the guy who looks most likely, like I said, to threaten and to break the game open, or at least to create and generate some scoring opportunities. Finbar was clunking just about everything that was coming his way, and he really looked like the guy that was going to step up and lead from the front when we really needed him to. And the sub is there to change the game and to change something that isn't working, and to find a way to shift the dynamic or to try something new. And the whole Finbar thing was working perfectly fine. It was actually working really, really well. And for the first three quarters of the game, most of the players out there were playing their role. Yes, some to a lesser impact than others, and that's what always happens, but we had no injuries. We had a clean bill of health. Why did we even need to use the sub? I don't think, and again, this isn't a knock on Zach Fisher specifically, but I don't think that bringing Zach Fisher into this game was going to change it, or was going to be the difference between us winning and losing the game. There's that real temptation to make a shift and make a change, and I just think this time we got it wrong. I was scratching my head thinking, how are we a forward line that's barely looked like putting a dent on the scoreboard all night in what was a low-scoring game for the first three quarters anyway, taking off the guy that looks the most dangerous? Am I missing something here? I don't know where the logic in that is. And that's a really annoying decision. And I think it was the wrong decision. And I wonder how much of that impacted our structure, impacted our game plan. Because like I said, for large portions of this game, particularly in the first half, we looked like we were really getting on top and we were allowing our game style to be the one to be more dominant and to have the game played in our own terms, because Collingwood want to play this really fast-moving, hard-attacking football, which is what they were able to do in the second half. In the third quarter, their biggest downfall was the inaccuracy in front of goal. But like I said, once they fixed that by three-quarter time, I mean, we had absolutely no answers for them. On the flip side, for North, we were trying to take the sting out of the game. It was this kick mark game style, and we were building the ball nicely up the ground. When we weren't allowing Collingwood to generate that run and that firepower throughout the game, we actually looked like we were in control. But once again, the game plan broke down often when we're executing into the forward 50, and that's where Collingwood are their most dangerous on the counter attack, and they do generate a lot of their scores from their back half. And it's no surprise. I mean, Isaac Quaynor I thought was awesome last night. Billy Frampton did a sensational job on Nick Larkey. And again, I mean, these guys, Jeremy Howe, we know what he's capable of, but he's heading towards the tail end of his career. There are guys in our forward line who should be able to match it and to take it up to these guys. It's just annoying. It's annoying because there were signs and we know the beauty and the art of patience, but the grim reality lies here this morning that we had all that hard work for nothing. And I think we really need to start demanding more and better from ourselves and from the guys on the field in situations like this, because so often a game has been in the balance and we have not just been blown away by full time, but we've been blown away quickly and comprehensively. It's the exact same thing that happened against the Gold Coast Suns. I mean, that game was in the balance. We were in front 5 minutes to go in the third. We ended up losing the game by nearly 9 goals. There's 3 points in this at three-quarter time, at our own ground, under our roof, at Collingwood's first time at Marvel Stadium this year, and we just completely capitulated in that last quarter. It's annoying. It's really, really, really annoying. And I think a lot of it comes down to work rate and comes down to, I don't know if I want to say effort necessarily, because I would hate to think and hate to question the effort on the back of last night's game, because there was so much good in it. But even though we were able to keep it tight for three quarters, there were alarm bells ringing in earlier patches of the game that we weren't able to stop, we weren't able to act upon. And that was very much to our detriment by the end of the game. The biggest indicator to me that our work rate was not there with Collingwood's was the tackle count. Like I said earlier, North looked to be playing this more kick mark game style. We were just looking to sort of maintain possession. We were looking to carefully move the ball from one end of the ground to the other, whereas Collingwood were really hard and fast coming the other way. At halftime, I think, or just before halftime, there was a graphic up at the ground that the tackle count was 44-17 in favour of Collingwood. For a team that were not really given a lot of room to work with and room to move. And what I mean by that is a lot of our game plan was this uncontested marking style, moving the ball up the ground. So there wasn't too many times, I would have thought, particularly in that first half, when we really were looking like the dominant side, where Collingwood could have applied that kind of pressure to us. But that to me is a clear indicator of the work rate and the output in comparison to our own. The Pies finished the game with 90 tackles to 48 and inside 50, 20 tackles to 10. That is a massive, massive difference. Ned Long, who was on fire last night in what was probably a legacy game for him. Had 14 tackles to finish the game. Our best was Jacob Constanti with 6 tackles. 6 tackles. That's all. And Jacob Constanti didn't have a massive game. Kicked a really nice goal, but that was kind of it. So you see what the difference is there. And for Ned Long, his 14 tackles came with 29 touches and 6 clearances and a couple of goal assists as well. So that is just not good enough. We aren't doing enough to match it with our opposition. We outnumbered them when it came to the marking. We also outnumbered them when it came to the contested marking. So we knew that we had that strength, but for us to still be outworked by Collingwood, I don't know if it's a fitness thing. I don't know if it's a lack of defensive blueprint, but I don't know if it's that, to be honest, because like I said, for the first 3 quarters, we were able to bring the ball back on our own terms. And it still, for me, comes back to this whole mental thing. You know, going into the game last night, and maybe this is to my detriment, but I like to always look at things glass half full, especially when it does come to North. And we've spoken so many times. I've spoken to people on this channel before. I've spoken to other people at games and on other channels that for a club that's sort of been down the bottom of the ladder for so long, I do like to have this sort of delusionally optimistic outlook on North Melbourne, on our progress and on what I think we are capable of, because there are green shoots and there are promising signs there. But when you kind of look at the stat sheet from a game like last night, you might be outclassed, you might be I don't want to say we were outworked. You might be outclassed, you might just not be as good as your opposition, but I never want to question if our work rate is matching the opposition. I never want to question if our effort and intent matches the opposition. Those things should be a given. So it is just frustrating and annoying, and I don't want to sit here and have to sugarcoat losses anymore. Yes, there are green shoots. Yes, there are things to like. Yes, we matched it with Collingwood for 3 quarters. Great, awesome. But we still lost the game by over 7 goals. And for us to, after the last month, which has been so promising and has been so pleasing and so encouraging to see, to leave your fans for the last time in a month with a performance like that and a last quarter like that is a real sting. It's a real killer, because we have the bye now and then we head over to WA for 2 weeks and play West Coast and play Fremantle, and we don't return to Melbourne until the second half of June. So despite the great performance against Port Adelaide, despite the great performance against Essendon and Brisbane and the win last week against Richmond, this is the lasting impression that we now have for 3 weeks, which is a bit sucky, I think. Yeah. Maybe we're just not as good, or we're not there yet like I thought we were. But I'd like to think that after the bye, we can find a way to dig a little bit deeper and kind of put together a second half of the season similar to what we did last year. There are definitely some winnable games in that. And I'd love us to really start harnessing opportunities when they come our way. To touch on a few individual players, I thought most players had their moments last night, but I can't speak highly enough of Tristan Xerri. This man is still not spoken about enough in the general AFL world as a star of the competition, and it's about time we start recognising. And I think people do recognise, but I don't think they realise just how important and how good of a footballer he is. we know that Darcy Cameron is having a sensational season, and Tristan Sherry kind of just dismissed him like it was no big deal. X winning the hitouts with 31 for the day. He had a goal, 17 touches, 3 tackles, and 7 clearances to his name. That's a mammoth game. Another great game from X. And there's no surprise that heading into round 11, he was the leader for the AFL Coaches Association Award. He's just having an unbelievable season, and part of me and part of the discussion over the years has been the ruck role evolving and not becoming as important as maybe it was once upon a time. But on the flip side, when you have a ruckman who is not just giving your players first supply the way that X does so often to our midfielders, but a lot of the time he just takes matters into his own hands, and he's one of the only ones really stepping up. You can't not look at that and think, wow, the ruck role actually has the opportunity to just transform a game when you have someone like him in charge. That goal he kicked in the opening quarter was awesome, and it was something out of nothing. It was really opportunistic, and it was sheer strength. And I don't think we give him enough credit still. I probably don't give him enough credit still, and I speak about him fairly frequently on this channel. And the fact that he was coming into, like I said, round 11, the leader of the AFL Coaches Association Award is pretty remarkable. And I think he's actually flown under the radar to be in that position. You sort of sit here and think, wow, you actually are a fantastic footballer, and you have such a huge impact on this side. And that little patch between games at Adelaide Oval where he was probably a little bit quiet and maybe he was battling with some hamstring issues is a reflection of how important he was, because when he wasn't as impactful, we felt it. And on the flip side, when he had a game like he had last night, you felt it. Dylan Stephens is the other one that I want to talk about. I thought that he had another sensational game. Dylan Stephens has really hit a new level in season 2025. The one knock I do have on him, and I don't really want to take away from what he's been able to do this season, is just that polish and that little bit of class at the end. There were some turnovers in crucial moments for Dill. He was working really hard to win his own ball. He was working really hard to create opportunities, but then when he did get the opportunities, he just didn't seize them. He was a turnover or a fumble. But I don't want to take away from the good that he does bring to this side. The run that he offers us on that wing is awesome. He is a pretty good decision maker for the most part, and he's kept Bailey Scott out of this side this season. And I think that is something that we have spoken about this year, and something that we've really, really enjoyed, is that we aren't just gifting players games anymore. We are actually demanding players for the most part to rise and to claim their spot in the side. And this case of Dylan Stephens playing over Bailey Scott is not something that I would have picked 12 months ago, but I'm really, really pleased that he is getting the opportunity that he definitely deserves. I thought Caleb Daniel played his best game for the club last night. I have to say I've been pretty underwhelmed by Caleb Daniel throughout this season. He's probably the one recruit that the expectation hasn't been met for me, and I'm talking about the 4 guys that we brought in from other clubs. But he did look quite good last night, coming off that halfback. There were a couple of times where we opted to kick to him. I think there was one example, we were kicking into the forward line and Caleb Daniel bopped up, and I don't know why you would kick it there when there was a Collingwood player running right down his neck, but that's not his own fault. He's been a real slow burn for me, Caleb Daniel, and I'm definitely not convinced yet, but last night was definitely a good start in terms of me finding appreciation and finding understanding for his role, and perhaps it was a bit more of an adjustment period for him in opposed to Luke Parker and Jack Darling and Jacob Constanti. I want to talk about my guy, Riley Hardiman. If that game was closer, or if we were able to win that game, then this definitely would have been a fine nomination, and more than fine nomination, for the Rising Star. I thought he was awesome last night, and he really showed fans what he is capable of. He had 28 touches, 10 marks, a clearance, but that run and that smart decision making and execution off the halfback is exactly what we needed. And it's so pleasing to see him not just get the opportunity, but now that he's got the opportunity in there to really be seizing it. I thought he was fantastic. And it's not just the one kick out of defense, it's creating options for the second and for the third follow-ups. For Riley, it's not just the one kick out of defense, it's the second and the third follow-ups and attempts. He just keeps running. He's happy to be at multiple chains down the line as we move the ball forward. And I think that it's so pleasing for him now that he's got the opportunity. He's really making the most of it, and he's barely put a foot wrong now that he's in this side. And I think he should be a lock in this side moving forward until there's a reason not to play him. I think he has really transformed the back line, and I don't think it's any coincidence that as soon as he came back into the side starting in the 22, that we've really been able to see a transformation in our back line in terms of clearing the ball out of our forward 50. The back line, I thought, for the most part, stood up quite well, and we were just unable to withstand the pressure. Not just the back line, but probably the midfield as well, as Collingwood did start to press. We definitely got outclassed. We got outshone. Jacob Constanti, like I said, was our leading tackler with 6 tackles. The next was Paul Curtis with 5, and then it was Cam Zerha with 4. George Wardlaw with 4 tackles was the most tackles for our midfield for the entire game. If you can't apply pressure in the middle of the ground, how are you going to stop Collingwood running so hard and so fast the other way? I only just realised that. 4 tackles was the highest tackle count for a midfielder in our side last night. Holy moly. That's not good. That's not good. We've got to be better than that. That, far out. The back line have absolutely no chance of stopping the Collingwood forward line when the ball is coming in so hard, so fast, and under such little pressure. Wow. Okay. That's a real eye-opener, I think, as to where we're at and the stark difference between North and Collingwood and the reason we maybe are where we are and they are where they are at the halfway mark of the season. There is still a lot of work to be done underneath all the highlights and the individual brilliance and the praise and the progress, which is evident at times and has been evident at least some points in every game this season, probably with the exception of Good Friday. That right there, though, is a classic example of the gap and maybe the size of the gap that we are looking to fill in our quest to return up the ladder. As I said at the top of the video, we now are heading into the bye, and we are going to sit with this performance for at least a fortnight until we take on West Coast over at Bunbury for the first of 2 home games in WA in season 2025. I think it's been an emotional roller coaster the first half of this season. I can't thank you guys enough for joining me on this journey. I would love to hear your thoughts on the back of last night's game. You can leave all of those in the comments down below. You can also have a chat over on socials, Kanga TV Show on Instagram, Facebook, X, and email as well. I've got a few things planned for us coming up in the bye week. We'll have a couple of catch-ups with some friends of the channel to talk about North Melbourne, where we sit at the halfway mark of the year. We also look towards the mid-season draft, which takes place next week, and then we will roll into our Western Australian stint. Like I said, the first game we play West Coast over in Bunbury in a couple of weeks' time. I'm sure we're all going to be looking forward to a bit of a rest and a recharge before we get set to go for the second half of season 2025. You guys enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I have no doubt we will catch up very, very soon. Go Roos.